The Winnipeg Jets finish off a season sweep of the Minnesota Wild with a 4-2 win that is just a repeat of every other game we've seen this season. Kirill Kaprizov, the only one able to get in the net. Power play, not enough urgency, and it's just a lot of players that are kind of there existing. This is not a new problem for this Minnesota Wild team, and it's one that I hope we see come to an end at some point soon, because I got to tell you, this is a season that I just cannot wait to see done. But let's talk about it. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast, ready to rock. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into tonight's Locked On Wild postcast featuring the Winnipeg Jets and the Minnesota Wild. One team fighting for a playoff spot and one team repeating the same thing on a game-by-game basis. 4-2, the final score here in this one tonight. And for the Wilds, 2 goals for Kirill Kaprizov. In the first period, it was 2-2. The Jets scored once in the second, once in the third. They clamped down defensively. They made things tricky for the Wild the rest of the game. And at this point, if my math is correct, the Los Angeles Kings need 2 more points. If they get 2 more points, which could happen as soon as tonight, the Wild are eliminated from playoff contention, because at best, the Wild then could tie the Kings if they win every game the rest of the way, which is definitely not happening. So we could get official mathematical elimination from postseason contention as early as tonight if the Kings are able to beat Vancouver this evening. And I got to tell you, I just cannot wait for that to happen, because this whole just continuing to ram into the wall and just keep trying thing, just keep trying the same thing, same line combinations, same players on the special teams units that don't score. Like, I'm ready to move on from it, because we heard the same things tonight from John Hines that we've heard 30 different times this season, is that the depth scoring wasn't good. We've seen that play out in real time all season, and nothing has been done about it. So I just would like to see a turn towards the future, which, as I'm seeing in the comments, we are getting officially tomorrow. Jesper Wallstedt will be making the start. He's in Chicago already. He will start tomorrow against Chicago. Thank goodness. But again, this is just another example of how much work this Wild team needs to do to get themselves to the same level of the teams like Colorado, like Dallas, even Winnipeg. They've got a lot of work to do, and it's not just one player away. They have a lot of work that they need to do. We saw another facet of this play out, and this is something that is, again, leading me down the path of there's going to be a trade made in the offseason. Elite prospects, and this is something that has been discussed before. I'm not the first person to mention this, but Minnesota Wilds are officially the smallest team in the NHL by weight and by height. In the entire NHL, they are the smallest team. They are the shortest team. And if you're going up against a team like the Winnipeg Jets, who are on the other end of the spectrum, you have stuff happen like happened tonight, where Logan Stanley comes lumbering into the lineup and he takes exception and takes shots at Kirill Kaprizov, and nobody responds. nobody's able to respond because there are a few players that are the same caliber of size as Logan Stanley. And so, like that is something that's going to have to be addressed by this team. And like in a way in which you're not just going and getting a guy that can play, a fourth line role or a third line role. Like you have to go find some guys that are bigger that have skill to throw into this lineup. Because as of right now, I mean, your top line, like here's what your top line rolls with size-wise. Here's the difference between the two teams. Kirill is 5'10", 202. Marco Rossi is 5'9", 182. Matt Zuccarello is 5'8", 181. The Jets, on the other hand, 6 foot, 172, 6'3", 207, 6'3", 216. I mean, the Jets have one player that is under 6 foot in their entire forward group, and that's Cole Perfetti. Like, it is just, it's a small roster, and it is made painfully obvious by the fact that you continue to see these big guys just do their thing, and there's nobody that's able to respond. And it was because Marcus Foligno and Zach Bogosian were out of the lineup. Like that's a brave decision by Logan Stanley to do what he did, knowing that there was nobody in the lineup that was going to push him on it. Like, I don't know. This roster just needs a ton of work, which is why I go back to continuing to wonder why this whole group was locked in. Why this group was locked in long term, because you don't give yourself the option to do a ton. Like I was just scanning through, like, let's go through and look at the number of players on the Wild side that were above 6 feet tonight. Your entire second line was Johansson, Eriksson, Ek, Boldy. Beckman is 6'2", Goudreau is 6 foot, and Lucchini is 6 foot. That's it. You've got 6 guys in your entire lineup that are on your forward group that are 6 feet or above. You got to get some size. And like, again, somebody tweeted this out. Like, you can't just go get somebody on a retirement tour. You got to find a way to get somebody into this mix that can actually score, can actually shoot the puck. Because that's the other thing, too, is the finishing on this team is just, it's abysmal. It's awful. If Matt Boldy was able to put the puck in the net even a couple of percentage points more than he currently is, he'd have 50 goals this season. The finishing outside of guys like Kirill Kaprizov, it just wholesale has to improve for this team going into next season. Like, these types of things are made painfully obvious when you go up against teams like this, like the Winnipeg Jets, who, especially defensively, like, they're going to push you to the outside and just let you take those shots all night. And the accuracy on those shots that come further out, way, way down. And the Jets just are like, hey, if you're going to shoot that, go right ahead. I don't know, everybody. We've got 6 more games left after this. Excited that we get to see Jesper tomorrow, but I'm real tired. Like, this season, just the fact that we just continue to see the string played on and on and on and on and on. Like, I'm beyond ready for things to just transition to next year And it was interesting, too, because John Hines was asked about guys playing for their jobs basically next year. And you can run through the list pretty obviously as to the players that should really do some soul searching here in the offseason. So I don't know. If you want a real detailed breakdown as to what happened here today, just go back to any of the other 50 times this game has been repeated. The stats they'll throw you with from Michael Russo, just listen to these, and then we'll get to the comments from everybody here tonight. The Wild are 0-9-1 this season against Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado. They have won 8 of 28 games against the 9 teams ahead of them in the Western Conference standings. 8 of 28. They have also lost 10 of their past 11 against those teams. So as Russo notes, the ultimate pretenders. They beat the teams below them in the standings, and they cannot beat the teams above them because you can't rely on one line. You can't rely on one group of players to score. You have to have depth. These teams have it. Winnipeg has a ton of depth. They were able to put that on full display here today. Wild do not have depth. They do not have scoring depth. So that's got to change. That's got to change, or this same result is going to be put out on full display next year. And I think we would all be super thrilled to not see this happen again. So let's get to everybody's comments because that's about all I have in terms of reaction to what we saw here today. Fun start to the game, but beyond that, it was mostly a snoozer. 4-2. Jets sweep the season series from the Minnesota Wild. None of the games got to overtime, so the Jets get all 8 points. They win by scores of 4-2, 6-3, 3-2, and 4-2 in taking the season series against the Minnesota Wild. Let's get to your comments on the way. You're listening to today's Locked On Wild postcast after this. Today's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because at eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Minnesota Wild lose by a score of 4-2 to the Winnipeg Jets. And let's get to your comments because I feel like I've recapped this exact game 90 different times so far this season. We'll start with the captain. As he notes, it is official. Jesper will be getting the start in Iowa, in Chicago tomorrow. So we get to see him in we get to see him play a team that he is more likely to be able to beat in the Chicago Blackhawks, a team that is not going to just destroy this Wild roster. And I'm excited to see what Jesper is going to bring to the table, because I think one of the things that was most impressive about Jesper after his first start in the NHL was how hungry he was to fix the areas that kind of let him down against the Stars. I think one of the things that Jesper was probably most surprised by was the speed at which the shots came from the Stars. Was a little quick to react to them, which is, that's fine. As a first start NHL goalie, there's an adjustment. There's an adjustment that needs to be made to how things look at the NHL level. So he got a taste of it, went back down to Iowa, worked on things, and he continued to execute his craft with a very jumbled Iowa Wild roster in front of him. So I'm excited to see where he's at in the process, and it sounds like he's going to be with the team for the road trip and by extension the rest of the season. So we should see him get a couple of starts down the stretch, which is exactly what we should be seeing here as the season plays out. Does Jesper starting tomorrow signal that we've given up hopes on the playoffs? I mean, I love the kid, but wouldn't Hines start Gus otherwise? I mean, it is a less than 1% chance. It's a 0.06% chance that the Wild make the playoffs at this point. 0.06. And like I said, if the Kings win tonight, the Wild are officially eliminated. And so this is exactly how this needs to play out as the season finishes. So sorry, I'm responding to Jets trolls on Twitter, because evidently me calling out Logan Stanley is okay, I think that's all of them. All right, let's get back to it. Sorry that distracted me. I'm just scrolling back up to the top. Another game where 89 and 90 contribute. Zip, nada, zilch. And third, it's funny because of the things that we have harped on the most, just full sends were very evident in this one. I mean, your third pairing defensively was a -3 each in this one tonight. And you've got two forwards. There were 5 guys that did not collect a shot. And, I will cut Murat and Adam Beckman a little slack as part of that third line. You're talking about a Winnipeg team that has the depth to be able to go toe-to-toe with all these lines. And there were a couple of points in which the Mark Scheifele line was out there against the Huzna-Dinov line, and that's just flat out a mismatch. But you got Gaudreau and you've got Johansson, who were just out there again. 18 minutes for Johansson, 13:48 for Gaudreau. Both played on the power play, both played on the penalty kill. It's those 4 guys just continue to, and I'm going to try to answer these questions realistically, because if we had our way, these guys would all be off the team. But you got to keep in mind that the guy who signed them is the one that makes the decision on whether or not they stay or go. And until he gets to the point that he is ready to make that call, 89 to 90 are going to be here next year. All we can hope for is that they get pushed down in the lineup a little bit more by some of these prospects. But unless the general manager makes some big changes, unless he's instructed to do so, we're going to see. And I will say, I was talking about this on Twitter too. I think we are going to see a trade made to try to add some size, which is going to come at the detriment of being a win now move, as opposed to a move for the future. That I can feel it in my bones that type of a move is coming. I hope it's somebody that comes in with some skill, but it's going to end up being somebody that is big on the veteran side to try to help beef up that top six. I would bet money on it that type of a move is coming at some point this offseason, because these are the games in which it is woefully apparent that this Wild team is just too small. So it's coming. Depending on how it shakes out, I'm going to probably just absolutely hate it. But again, like, we have to be realistic. Bill Guerin is the one that calls the shots. And unless he is completely done with guys that he locked into long-term deals, John Merrill, not Alex Goligoski, because he's retiring, unless he gets signed to another extension. John Merrill, John Merrill, Freddie Gaudreau, and Marcus Johansson are all going to be here next year. 100% are all going to be here, unless Bill Guerin himself realizes that he needs to make some changes. Why Damon Hunt and Jesper weren't playing is a disservice to the fans and the team. Again, that's a GM call. That's a GM call. He's the one that makes the call-ups and sets the roster. That's on the GM. Amazing how the criticism tonight was on depth scoring lacking. They scored 1 of 2 goals against Colorado and 2 of 3, including the game-winning goal against Ottawa. Can't wait for all 4 lines to play a complete game. Yeah, I can't wait for 2025. Honestly, like, this is just all going to continue until that point. And let's be honest, it's probably going to extend well past that too. Zuccarello, Rossi, and Kaprizov are fine if you have some big D-men to run with them. Yeah, and you know, this is why you have Marcus Foligno on the team, because he does have size. And if your top 6 is not going to have a ton of size, you have to have guys in the lineup that can bring that. And so, again, make no mistake, Logan Stanley's decisions were largely done because of the guys who were out of the lineup. And so I would take one of the Tkachuks at this point. Honestly, I'd take one of them on this team, because that's the other thing too, is the fire. Like, anybody else just scratching their head at what we have seen from this team when they have been pushed to the brink. Like, today's game, you're very likely going to wake up tomorrow and be eliminated from playoff contention. And it was good early, but that second and third period, Winnipeg controlled about 80% of the action up until the final power play of the game, in which they went empty net 6-on-4, and you have to score. And they were playing like they needed 1 goal to tie. You needed 2 goals at that point in the game. Like, the urgency and the level of, like, desperation has just been completely off all season. Ever since the start of the year, it has never recovered. And like that is just, it is irritating from my perspective. Just keep me posted, Denny. What I'm going to try to do, as you probably noticed, is schedule out the upcoming live shows and all that so that they're all set in advance, because then that way I can get you the link easier for when you do join. So just keep me posted. We'll get you on for Sundays. We'll make it happen. Sean, I hope so, because that's why Charlie Stramel was drafted, was because he is a bigger body at this point, at this stage of his development, and the hope being that he continues to grow. But like, I really hope just that I can stop harping on it, that he's able to go to a school that allows him the opportunity to just kind of be part of the group, so that they're just this pressure to perform just is erased. Like I don't like throwing out that a guy's a bust, and I'm not to that point with Stramel yet, but like, can we just get him to a spot in which he can kind of start to develop, so that I don't have to, put that pressure on. Quadram asks if we could trade Spurgeon in the offseason. And again, I'm going to use my realistic voice to answer this question. Until Jared Spurgeon can show that he's healthy, he's not going anywhere. His no move clause does go down to a no trade, and I believe, let me just pull it up. I think it's a 10-team no trade. So, so that is one thing that moves in the favor of the Minnesota Wild. Yeah, it's a 10-team no trade list starting July 1st. So that works in the favor of the Minnesota Wild, but again, he has to show that he's healthy. That conversation cannot even begin to happen unless you're going to use him as a long-term injured reserve trade chip. That's not, and again, I don't think the GM is going to be somebody to do that. I don't think he's going to do that to his captain. So until he shows he's healthy, that is a conversation that cannot end up happening. Sam Lafferty, 6'2", 205. This is interesting. For some reason, why do I not know which team? Vancouver Canucks. I just want to look into his profile a little bit. So he's got 12 goals in 73 games. He's 6'1", 195. And he is 28. Is he an impending free agent, or would this require a trade? Let me just take a peek. He is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. Okay, so that might not be a bad. But again, you've got Eriksson Ek, you got Rossi, you got Kuznetsov, who are going to be taking those center spots. But I mean, as somebody to kind of fill in, I would have no problem with that. Can the GM really think that Hunt is worse than either Merrill or Goose? If yes, I mean, I feel like if there was an opinion that Damon Hunt could play on a regular basis, I feel like he'd be here. So again, that's on the GM. I feel like he would be here if he was somebody that they viewed as capable of helping out this season. The third pairing was -3 today. Targeted by Rick Bowness and company. Targeted when they were out there. Buying out Johansson leaves a potential opening for plugging in Danila Yurov. It does, but again, that's the GM's call. That is the GM's call. That has to come from him. Jared Tenorti. I like that Bill is giving us some guys with size here to try to help this out. Because like they need it. And it would be nice. Like this will never happen. But you know who would be great to kind of help with this? Tage Thompson from Buffalo. It will never happen. But Tage Thompson would be perfect. He's a unicorn kind of a player. He's like 6'7". He can score. He has just a rocket shot. He'd be perfect. But again, never going to happen. So yeah. What's up, Jesse Pierce? Hey, folks, Jesse is going to come on the show next week. Next week. Sure. Thumbs up. We got it. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about this. Denny would be putting Johansson and Gaudreau through basically just sprints on the ice until they ask for a trade. I mean, they've gotten in plenty of cardio lately, so they may like that. They may enjoy that. Hard to say. Let's just look at a few others here. Since we're doing the live show tomorrow and the watch party for the game, I'm gonna keep this one a little more brief than I typically do because we're gonna be live all day tomorrow. And I just kind of want to forget about this game, to be honest. This could be the official audition for Volstead next season. He plays well, and either Flower or Gus will be gone. I don't think this is an off the wall take by any stretch. It would be just nice to see where his progress is at, and if he impresses, like if he shows that at base level he can beat a team like Chicago, it's a good step of progress. Then the next leap that he makes is to beat some of the other teams in this division. And then next thing you know, he's a regular NHL guy. Lettieri and Lucchini are career AHL players, and that's where they'll be next season. I envision, and clearly this is why I'm not a general manager, because this is just a stupid way to look at things, I guess. I envision a situation next year in which if you can't find a way to move them, you have Freddie Gaudreau centering like the fourth line, and you go Mason Shaw on one side and Marcus Johansson on the other. If you can't find a way to get rid of those guys, you just have to open up spots. You just have to do it. Boy, we hate Matt Boldy in this chat. I'm going to have to do an episode on that because I'm seeing a lot of Matt Boldy. Trade Matt Boldy. Matt Boldy's terrible. Matt Boldy is more focused on golf than he is on playing hockey. Like, the dude's 22 years old. Could he be more consistent? Could he finish more than he does? Yes and yes. He needs to work on his consistency going forward. But 22 years old, he is far down the list of issues that I have with this current roster. If that turns me into a Matt Boldy defender, a blind Matt Boldy defender, so be it. But he just is not anywhere near the top of the list in terms of issues with this current team. 22 years old, 23 years old. Just had his birthday this week. Happy birthday, Matt Boldy. When the playoffs start, who would you like to see hoist the cup? Honestly, it's somebody fun. Some fun team that either rides the momentum from the regular season or puts it all together. Honestly, the Florida Panthers last year getting to the Cup final was a lot of fun. I would like to see something like that. Maybe Nashville. Maybe the Nashville Predators ride their hot stretch, ride getting the U2 concert canceled to a Stanley Cup. I just want fun. I am going to be watching this postseason completely and 100% free of expectations or anything. I'm not going to pick a team. I'm just going to watch, because what I want to do is look at how these playoff teams operate, what makes them tick compared to where this Wild team is currently at. This outfit needs a total makeover, and that has to start with the worthless GM. Absolutely no more of this BS. Guerin Country Club GM's job isn't to be buddy-buddy with the players. Well, that is going to have to go one step above for anything to happen. We're not. Coach isn't getting fired. GM isn't getting fired. It's just it is not in the cards for the rest of this season, for next year. Maybe if they miss the playoffs again next year, there's a change made, but I somehow doubt that too. How come Boston was able to take Maroon after the trade deadline? So that trade did happen on deadline day. It just did not get processed until after the actual trade deadline. Because what happens is, if I have the sequence of events right from that, if you have a trade in agreement as a general manager, you call the league and you tell them that you have a trade agreed upon, and they put you onto like a waiting list. So you get the trade call in before the deadline, because there were a bunch that happened like in the 10, 15 minutes before the deadline actually happened. They put you onto like a list, and then they sort them out after the fact. But as long as they get agreed upon before the deadline passes, then you're good. And that Maroon trade was one that kind of happened in that whirlwind. And so it did end up happening before the deadline. Just didn't get processed until after. The lack of urgency is concerning. Hines can't fix that. The roster needs a reset. That's a GM thing, once again. Could the Wild refusing to sit Johansson and Freddie be their way of subtly accepting the tank? Like, we won't win and go far if they're out on the ice anyway? Can't see why else they'd start. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one. I have a hard time believing Leopold is happy with this team right now. Bill Guerin sold him on a soft rebuild, and that's not working, which is why there's going to be an adjustment made to this roster in the offseason to get them back to the postseason next year. Let's just see what else. Yeah, and again, like I've said it, there are things that Matt Boldy needs to work on. going into next season. But like, he just is not. He's not on my issues list for this team. What is this? All right, now the chat's starting to get. I think the chat has been infiltrated, but I was going to. I think, call it at that point. Vegas has a lot of UFAs they can't renew. Do you take Chandler Stevenson and Alec Martinez? Tell you what, pop this one in tomorrow. Pop this one into tomorrow's live show, and I will answer it there. I'm going to cut it because I think the chat's been infiltrated, and so this is probably going to just start to get weird. So, Wild lose today, 4-2. They got swept by the Jets. They have not been able to beat any of the teams in front of them in the standings, and that will do it for tonight's Locked on Wild postcasts. Appreciate everybody joining us here tonight. Make sure to join us for tomorrow's live show at noon, followed by a watch party for tomorrow's Blackhawks and Wild game. Jesper Wallstead getting the start. We'll have all of that coming up for you tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit the like button before you leave today. And for those bots that infiltrated the chat here today, appreciate you too. You can find new content every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.